The topic for this video now is going to be the way that we acquire immunity, okay? And in terms of acquiring immunity, we've got kind of two pathways we can go down, okay? We can have naturally acquired immunity, and we can have artificially acquired immunity, all right? And in terms of the natural and the artificial immunity, this can be either a passive or an active process, all right? So that's true for natural immunity. It's also true for artificial immunity, all right? There will be passive and active ways to acquire the different types of immunity, all right? The first one I'm going to start with, we'll start with natural active immunity, all right? That natural active immunity, all right, means that you have been exposed to a particular pathogen, whether that pathogen be viral in nature or bacterial in nature, all right? So in terms of that, you may be exposed to the chickenpox virus. Your body is going to respond to that virus. If you haven't been vaccinated for chickenpox, what's going to happen? Your B cells and T cells are going to become activated. They're going to start to fight that infection. And after that infection has cleared, your body will have generated the memory cells necessary to fight off the infection again. All right? So active natural immunity, you're exposed to a pathogen, all right? For example, chickenpox, all right? And in terms of that, you're going to generate memory cells out of it. The downside of natural active immunity is you get sick in the process, all right? And that's not fun. It's not fun to have the chickenpox if you've had it. What may be more relevant for you as far as that goes, you can have natural active immunity with something like the flu virus too. You walk into the classroom, you sit down in your seat, you didn't know it, but the person who sat there before you had the flu and came to class. They left flu viral particles all over the desk. You touch the desk, rub your nose. You've exposed your respiratory epithelium to that flu virus, and you get sick, all right? But in terms of that, what's good about natural active immunity is you do develop that memory component. So if you come across that particular strain of the flu virus again, your body's ready to go. It's ready to defend against that virus, and it's going to take it out before you get sick. Same thing with the chickenpox, okay? So in terms of that, when we're talking about acquired immunity, the natural active immunity is what you're probably most familiar with, all right? So in terms of that, that's natural active immunity. If we talk about natural passive immunity, primarily the natural passive immunity that we're talking about here is going to involve your mom, okay? And in terms of that, what we're talking about with passive natural immunity, you've got those IgG antibodies that cross the placenta. That's a passive process. Whatever mom's been exposed to in her life, she has antibodies circulating to that. Those antibodies cross the placenta, give some short-term coverage to the infant right after they're born, okay? So the IgG antibodies that cross the placenta, the IgA antibodies that are going to be present in breast milk. Oops. Those are going to be our main examples of passive natural immunity, all right? So in terms of that, I used blue before, all right? The downside on that you've got no memory associated with that, because essentially what you've got are proteins that mom made that she's passing on to the child. Okay? So natural passive immunity is going to come from your mom. Natural active immunity comes from your interaction with the environment, all right, and various pathogens that you encounter, all right? Artificial immunity now, all right? Again, we've got passive and we've got active, all right? Passive is going to be any injections of antibodies, serum. All right, so if somebody, for example, is bitten by a rattlesnake or a snake, a poisonous snake, they can go, a lot of times hospitals will have antitoxins to certain venoms. Those antitoxins would be an example of artificial passive immunity, all right? You're taking something that was generated somewhere else and you're passing it on to the person. But in terms of that passive artificial immunity, this again, as far as downside, no memory, okay? So in terms of that, it will treat something immediate, all right? So in terms of the passive immunity, there are a lot of immunoserums that are coming on board now with cancer patients. That would be an example of passive artificial. It's artificial because you're injecting it into the patient, all right? As opposed to natural passive, all right? It's natural because it's coming from mom, all right? That's the main difference. Artificial, the source comes from something else. All right, can be another person, not mom. Passive, there's no memory associated with it, okay? Our artificial active now, this is going to be the one that we're going to concentrate in the next couple videos as far as vaccines. Because this is the category that vaccinations fall under, all right? It's artificial active immunity, all right? You are intentionally exposed to an antigen. All right, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in the next couple videos about how that antigen is generated. But typically what you're doing with vaccinations, you're not actually injecting, say, the entire chickenpox virus. You're injecting a small portion of that viral protein, and what that is, that small portion of that protein is enough to stimulate your acquired immune response, and it's going to generate those B cells and T cells like our natural active immunity, okay? The upside on this is that you don't get sick, right? That's a happy face. That's a good thing, all right? You don't get sick, but you also now we're going to have that memory component, all right? So the advantage really of vaccinations, you're saving yourself or you're saving your child from having to be sick. You're going to get the same kind of immune response. You're going to get activation of B cells, you're going to get activation of T cells, and you're going to generate those memory cells. So when your child or when you come across the chickenpox virus, you don't end up getting the disease. You don't get sick, all right? So that's artificial active immunity, all right? So in terms of that, with our acquired immunity, we've got natural and artificial. There's passive and active for each, okay? It's going to be the active immunity for both natural and artificial that are going to produce our memory component, all right? So keep that in mind. If you have any questions, please let me know.